Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aging in Place, the Greater Naperville Area's Family Guide. Our goal is to help the sandwich generation, this is middle-aged adults kind of in your 40s and 50s, who are squeezed by the responsibility of simultaneously supporting aging parents as well as their own children. We want to help their parents age as gracefully as possible and reduce the stress through education and community connection. It takes a village, folks, and there are a lot of great resources and ideas that we try to uncover through expert guests that know the local area very, very well. I'm your host, Dan Drews, and this is my co-host and sponsor, Mr. Brennan Roberts, the owner of Seniors Helping Seniors for the Greater Naperville area. Brennan, tell us a little bit about Seniors Helping Seniors.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So Seniors Helping Seniors, our mission is really to help seniors in our community kind of live independently for as long as possible with sort of the dignity and grace that they deserve. So we provide non-medical in-home care services such as companionship, support with daily living, and personal care. And we do it through this what we feel is a very unique intergenerational model. So our caregivers are sort of active, loving, mature seniors themselves, and they're able to provide more of a peer-to-peer support for our clients that really, we think, benefits our caregivers just as much as our clients. And we recognize, we're just kind of a sliver of the care and issues, and our vision is really to help alleviate stress on families as well as kind of make connections within the community for our families. So we're excited to be a sponsor of the podcast and be part of the conversation, and I'm excited about learning more and how we can help our families with issues like today.
Well, thank you, Brennan, and a very important sliver nonetheless, too,
yes,
right?
It is.
Folks, our show today is going to focus on the home and real estate and how that plays into the plans for seniors at different stages of their retirement process. And to help with that, I am so excited that we are joined today by a Naperville real estate icon, Jennifer Drohan. Jennifer grew up in Naperville, and she has happily been serving the western suburbs since 2003. With more than 22 years of experience as a realtor, she is an expert in her field. Jennifer is a relocation specialist and an accredited certified staging consultant. In 2019, folks, she was the #1 individual agent in listing volume at Keller Williams Infinity. Jennifer, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you both. I'm honored to be here.
Great. Well, listen, did I miss anything in that flowery introduction for you?
No, you did great.
Okay, sounds good. Brendan, listen, we've got a big topic to cover today with Jennifer. Where do you want to start with this big mammoth topic?
Yeah, well, I thought we'd start kind of big picture. Like, this is interesting. I think like intuitively people kind of know the shift. There's some shift in demographics going on. And when you look at the numbers, sometimes it's a little staggering, I guess. We've seen this massive increase in sort of the size of the population that's 65 plus. I mean, you can see this little chart shooting way up to the right. And even if you projected this out even further, the number of people that are 65 and over in the country is going to expected to double in the next 40 years. And the number of people 85 and over is supposed to triple even. So, and it really hits home. Like this is interesting. Like we've seen sort of in just the Western DuPage County, like the population has really remained flat if you look at sort of the census data overall, but you've seen that the 65 plus population is really going up significantly. So you can see these numbers just in 2010, it was like 10% of the population, and by just in 20 years, it's expected to be almost 18% of the population in the area. So I'm just kind of curious, like, big shift in demographics. Like, how is that impacting the real estate market overall?
Mm-hmm. So, especially in our area, focusing mainly DuPage County, et cetera, we're seeing a tremendous lack of inventory of available homes. There are a big chunk of the generation now that want to age in place. So we're seeing less and less inventory for our new buyers to purchase because a lot of our residents here are wanting to stay in their homes.
Yeah, I think like the things that we've seen, obviously, Seniors Helping Seniors likes to help people live in homes, and we've seen like our studies show like 90% of people, if you ask them, like I want to age in my home as
Exactly.
long as I possibly can.
Exactly.
But particularly when you're getting up to 85 plus, there's a huge percentage of them that need help and need to do stuff. So I imagine you're in homes all the time. Like what kind of things are you seeing with people making modifications or changes to their house to help kind of enable that aging process?
Sure. So if a resident has been in their home for years and years or decades and decades and they really want to stay, there's modifications that can be done to the home to make it easier for them. We always would recommend pulling up any sort of carpeting, laying down either hardwood tile or even luxury vinyl plank flooring now is a preferred material to be used. Ease of using wheelchairs, walkers, etc. Things that can be installed, such as grab bars in bathrooms. We're also seeing a lot of chair lifts in two-story property. We're also seeing as much as putting on an addition onto the existing home to accommodate a first floor primary suite.
Interesting. And does that have any impact on, like, if you're looking down the road at resale values? Do you see that like having a negative? Is it a positive?
That's not necessarily a negative. Some of those items may need to be removed. A chair lift, for example, is a lot of nuts and bolts going up the stairwell. And for a buyer who may be a different age demographic, that might be a little intimidating for them. So that might want to be removed before that comes on the market for sale, for example.
Brendan, I was just thinking about this too. So my parents are in their early 80s and they're going to do a bathroom conversion right now. But those are the types of things that they're going to be adding in, grab bars and things like that. In your experience, are there companies that kind of focus on those type of revisions or alterations?
Most handyman builders can take care of something like that. Actually, it's probably a lack of corporation that we have that would do adjustments like that. So it's a pretty good business idea to come in and do something like that for people. Yeah.
There's a few in the area that specialize in that. Obviously, part of our role sometimes is coming in and like helping make advising and like things that we'd point out, but we're really thinking about how does the senior stay in place. For bigger things, there's certainly companies like a 101 Mobility in the area that our people can call and they'll come in and do a more broader assessment and help with things like wheelchair ramps and figure out they've got some services. But yeah, I think a lot of people depend on like handyman and thinking about they got to do it themselves. But there are some resources in the community for them to do that.
Jennifer, when you find that families are kind of in this transition period, is it typically you see it initiated by the older homeowner, or sometimes the other family members kind of having the light bulb moment, like, I think we better do this for mom and dad?
The majority is the older homeowner, is not wanting to leave. And the middle or sandwich generation, which I'm a part of as well, oftentimes does want them to downsize, get a little more simple with their living, get a little more maintenance free in their housing. However, if the resident wants to stay, it probably would be the children, the sandwich generation, helping to make these modifications, helping connect them with the companies and suggesting what would be helpful, what they need. Sometimes they can do even an ADA compliant vanity or kitchen if they are wheelchair bound. Doorways may need to be widened, etc. So that's a little bit bigger process.
Yeah, I wonder. I have found it difficult sometimes engaging with my parents on these steps that they need to take, the modifications that need to happen in the home. And I'm wondering if any family members ever tapped you on the shoulder and say, Jennifer, can you please talk to mom?
Of course.
And because sometimes that third party
coming from the middleman, sometimes it's just a little smoother, a little easier to digest for the people who want to stay in the home.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. I imagine there's some times when you're walking in, you're like, okay, the amount of modification we have to make this home livable for you is kind of beyond the benefit of maybe looking at downsizing.
Correct.
So speaking of that, there's always going to be a time like, a lot of people raise their kids in their home. They think about like, I want to have extra bedrooms when people come home for the holidays and all that stuff, but really their house is way too big or they want to downsize, but they also love the community. They love the neighborhood. Talk us through like families kind of decided or talk to you about it. Like, hey, we want to downsize, and
Yep.
what does that mean for somebody today?
Yeah, oftentimes it might be a family decision, especially if we're down to one parent, if one is a widow. The children may be really heavily advising. So, number one, really, we're looking at how maintenance free do we need to be? There's two different sort of downsizing that they could do. Are we needing a maintenance free living that is a downsized, smaller square footage property where the lawns, the snow, everything is taken care of for them on the exterior? Or are we really needing some sort of intervention with some care? Are we needing something more along the lines of like a Tabor House or like a Monarch Landing Assist at some point, which weighing the options, the first step is generally a downsize into a 55 and over community is generally the first step of a downsize.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen a lot more of those. It feels like popping up in the area
because we need them.
you
They're
know?
coming.
Yeah. So what about like when I think about downsizing, a lot of times, like when my mother went through it, it was going from a larger home to like a condo kind of in town. Is there even like availability? Is there any inventory for that kind of thing?
Like 55 and over sort of community?
Well, I guess there's like the 55 and over. Maybe you can talk a little bit about those, but also like hey, like what are my options? I guess it's 55 and over community, or maybe like a small condo or a small ranch style house. Like, is there inventory in the area?
A small amount of inventory, yes. There's going to be a bit more inventory available in the true 55 and over communities, such as the Carillon or the Del Webbs. They're starting to expand outside of DuPage County, of course, sort of heading west toward Oswego, Yorkville, etc. There's going to be more coming in. There is truly a need for these communities, and generally they sell out pretty quickly. There's one new one in Aurora, down south on Eola. It's Del Webb. It's absolutely beautiful, and I think they might be in their final phase now of strictly ranch.
They're starting phases 4 and 5. But yeah, it's been very popular
with building. They've been pre-selling out before they're constructed. There's no spec models to purchase, so it's only build to suit. And beautiful clubhouse. They really are coming in with the luxuries that make it a resident want to stay here versus almost moving to Florida or moving to a warmer climate. If they still have family in the area, they really are going to want to stay local, and that's this market. That's what we're seeing is they don't want to leave the neighborhoods and area and friends and doctors that they grew up with. So they're comfortable downsizing into something maintenance free. Inventory wise is, it's a little tight. Our areas, we're building huge subdivisions, huge monster homes, 3,000 square foot and up, generally 2-story.
Not too many new ranches.
Not many new ranches at all, unless it is 55 and over.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're seeing a lot of that.
I'm curious on when these new developments come up, like the Carillon and the Del Webb. I imagine you guys get the first heads up that these developments are coming in. And do they have like a open house? Like, do they cater to the realtor market to say, hey, listen, when you've got these clients, let's kind of let kind of a show and tell, if you will.
Sometimes, sometimes we're invited, and always it's, of course, if you're looking, we need to accompany that very first visit to get you registered, because as a realtor, we do want to represent you through the full transaction. If you need assistance with anything, even reviewing the contracts, the builders we work with are great there, but we have the best interest at heart for our clients. So we're kind of looking out for making sure they see, anything that they might question that they don't think of. So we're kind of looking things over for them and guiding them through the whole transaction as well.
Gotcha. So clients start with you, then you can open up the catalog.
Right. Right. Yeah. When it comes to designing the new property, they'll be one-on-one with the design centers. Unless they want us to accompany, we're absolutely happy to do so. But reviewing the contracts, looking at timelines, helping with financing, and most people don't think that they need an inspection on new construction. We highly recommend it. So we can recommend our inspectors to come through and really do a final check on that property before they take possession.
I think getting that perspective on the contracts, because they can be, if you're building to spec, especially like in a place like Del Webb where they're promising different services and amenities, which is one of the reasons you're buying, but there might be things about the timeline. So I know like some of the residents that got in early at Del Webb, are a little frustrated because a lot of the amenities they expected in the contract, it's not until like phase
Are
5
completed,
is
yeah.
done, and here they are. I've been living in this area for
Sure.
2 years now, and I'm still waiting on the gate to be down, and I want security. But
Right.
it's very clearly written in
Yeah.
the contract that we'll write it there. But it's
Right.
not something I think most people are going to catch
Right.
on their own.
We just like to be devil's advocate and look out for our clients. So most builders do require them to be registered on the first visit with us anyways. And it is helpful. It's helpful. We're just looking out for their best needs.
I would imagine too, some of your older clients, it may have been 30 years since they bought their
Completely.
last home. Yeah.
Everything's
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
And especially if they're needing financing, we can absolutely help guide them, keep them within their timelines for appraisals and applications, etc. So yeah, just to have that guidance, that's what we do.
Yeah. You'd mentioned before in our previous conversations, there's potentially like when financing or discounts available for seniors that are out there. Like what is that? What are
Right, there's different sort of exemptions depending on their qualifications. So senior exemptions, depending on the county, there's an age stipulation, but that will reduce their taxes. We are all obtaining homestead exemptions on our homes, on our primary residence. That's a given. When you close the property, the attorney will file that for you, and we're all getting that. However, seniors are able to apply for more. If they have income restrictions, they can also get something called the senior freeze on their taxes. However, this is most likely needing to be applied for year over year. So if they let it lapse, it's going to go back to the full tax amount. So senior freeze is income dependent. It's a lower income tax freeze, literally will freeze the taxes at a certain amount for them. Senior exemption is an age restriction, and per your county, you would apply there.
Yeah. Okay. So so again, the idea of getting a professional to kind of help you out and do that transition, particularly if you haven't moved for 30 years. So
Sure.
I'm also hearing like a lot of these 55 plus communities, which are great in many ways. It sounds like you really got to be thinking ahead because I imagine there's like a waiting list or they are selling very quickly in the area. So
they do. There's a couple of Carillons right within the Naperville kind of window. There's one in Aurora. There's one in Naperville. Naperville is the only one that I'm aware of that actually has a freestanding condo style building as well, with 1 and 2 bedroom condos, underground parking, etc. For truly turnkey living. They have all the amenities: the Carillon, the pool, the golf, etc. However, it's in I think there's maybe six level to that building. That's a gated community in Naperville, the Carillon there, and that's quite rare to see an actual condo 55 and over in one of those communities. Yeah.
And I imagine, just because you've mentioned inventory so low, if somebody's like, hey, I don't want to move there, I want to stay somewhere near my own neighborhood, and I need a smaller home or something like that, like don't expect to have a bunch of choices available to you right off the bat. And like, do you find that some of your clients you're working with on downsizing, like the process can take, a year or longer? I don't know what's.
Hopefully not, but it depends on what their needs are. So if they're in a position where they can purchase their new home without selling the existing, which many people are not in that position. But if they are, we highly recommend that we get their new home settled up first. They transfer over the furnishings, the personal property that they want from the larger home first, and then they can go through the sale process with us with their existing larger home being vacant, empty. They don't have to go through the hassle of the showings and making sure beds are made and dishes are done every day. That's a lot, having people through your home constantly, through open homes, etc. So ideally, if we can do that, that's great. There are finance options where they may be able to pull equity out of that existing home to go and purchase the new. And we have lenders, of course, that can assist with things like that. If they're not in a position, we're just going to make it as simplified as possible, make it as easy as possible, such as showing time restrictions, no showings until after maybe 10 or 11 a.m. if it's a little harder to move around in the morning to get the house ready, no showings after perhaps dinner time so that they have the evenings free. We're going to work with them to make it as comfortable as possible.
Wow. And then I imagine, so you've got a big house with a lot of stuff. You downsize to a smaller place.
Right.
I imagine you would probably have contacts or work with some estate sale folks too to help liquidate whatever it is that doesn't want to be had. I know my parents always ask me, well, what do you want? I go,
Correct.
I have all these things. I
Correct.
don't need them.
Yeah.
I don't need 10
Yeah,
Christmas
yeah.
trees.
Here's
I don't need another couch.
Here's
Yeah.
Grandma's
True.
china.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's really sad the amount of China scent and crystal. We see it like a Goodwill now
Mhm.
because there just isn't a
Mhm.
market for it. But absolutely, if they're really wanting to sell, we really need to de-stuff. I hate to call it clutter because it's their
Yeah.
personal, they love these items. They were very precious to them. However, today's buyer don't want to see that when they're walking through the property. They want to see it as minimal as possible. So
Yeah.
step one is always have any relatives, family come through and exactly what your parents did.
Mhm.
Please take the items that you'd like, or you don't want us to sell. Estate sale would really be next, leaving any minimal items for comfort of living. And then if they're not able to take all those items to their new property, there are companies, donation companies in Downers Grove, Aurora, Naperville, etc., that can pick up. They can do
Mhm.
resale. And if there's nothing that can be resold, there's obviously the companies that will just come and haul out things that would be considered junk
Yeah.
items.
Yeah.
Well, Brendan, I would think in your experience too, this kind of falls in that bucket of let's have the conversation today
Yes.
so we don't have to get caught behind the eight
Oh,
ball
right.
tomorrow.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think, things are personal.
Mhm.
There was a trip they went on, or, somebody gave it to them, and it was very personal. So,
For
those
sure.
are the kind of stories I think are helpful to have with
course.
your parents as they're aging and understand why
course.
it's meaningful. And
Of course.
therefore, you might look at, if you wait too long, you might look at this
Mhm.
vase over here, and it might
That's
not
right.
mean anything to you, but if
That's
you
right.
know the story behind it,
Right.
it might take on something
Right.
totally different. You don't want to
It's
do
true.
it. So,
Mhm.
I think it's part of the conversations you have with your parents ongoing. And then, as you talked about, like,
Right.
it's a huge burden on families if, like, unfortunately, when people pass and they haven't done that,
That's right.
and for the kids to have to come in and sort of figure out what to do with all this stuff, it is very
It's
difficult.
overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming. So,
Yeah.
It is.
and it's nice to know there's obviously professionals like you can reach out to, and they'll
Yeah.
help facilitate the process and connect you with the right
It's a
people.
process. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Jennifer, I wanted to ask a question, if I could, Brendan, kind of about modifying current homes.
Mhm.
Like if I know that we'd have to say mom's going to move out and now she's going to move in with me.
Mhm.
Like, do you see a lot of that modification on current homes of the sandwich generation where they're trying to have mom live with them now?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of clients that are faced with this issue. So there's a couple ways they can handle it. If they have a large enough property, they may be able to build on for mom and dad,
Mhm.
mom or dad,
Mhm.
with a extra primary suite. If they have a good amount of land, they may be able to even put something, they call it a granny pod,
A
which is a
granny pod.
freestanding
Okay.
suite, if you will, on the property. That's going to be a lot more difficult to get zoning for. So in our
Yeah.
area, that's not really allowed. However, if you've got some acreage out toward Oswego, Yorkville, etc.,
Mhm.
Plainfield, you may be able to do something like that. Do a whole separate freestanding almost building for them. Also, what we're seeing is some of our sandwich generation folks selling all of the homes and looking for a property that can accommodate everybody.
I was gonna say, I feel like that's probably a shift in what people are looking for in many
Right.
cases. Like
Completely.
we saw this stat here about like the number of Gen Xers that are buying, and that's like one of their main criteria. So I imagine you're hearing
Yeah.
that more often. Like, I
To
need a
accommodate
place.
aging
I need a
parents.
place where either
We
mom's
are.
going to live with me now, or I want to be prepared to
Yeah.
have mom live with me. So
Even just having a first floor full bathroom is massive
Huh.
because most cases people are not using their big living room, especially houses that were built in 80s, 90s, huge living rooms that serve no purpose for us anymore. If there's a full bathroom in place or room to extend, they can turn that living room into a suite. Really, they can builders can do anything these days to wall that up, put some nice doors on it, attach it to a bathroom, or create a full bath out of a powder room by borrowing from closets or borrowing space from the living room. If it can be modified in that way, that's going to be a much less hassle, easier way to do than both of you combining it to a brand new property.
Mhm.
But if not, a new property might be in order. And chances are they may be able to afford more of a property if mom or dad are contributing to the new home.
that's a good
They're
point.
combining resources, so they may be able to get something with a larger 2 primary suites, 3-car garage, etc. And then they're there with mom or dad, able to help out every day a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. So, um, yeah, I guess we talked about a couple things like planning ahead and all that stuff. Like any kind of like general words of advice to people either navigating this today or might be planning it
Sure.
ahead of
From
time.
clients or your own
Sure,
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Research, research,
Mhm.
research, and contacting a company like you to kind of assist, guide them with that. I think it's two big components. Are we downsizing into a 55 and over? Are we very mobile still? Are
Mhm.
we still very independent? Or are we really looking for something where we are needing a lot of extra assisted? It's two totally different markets. And if they're still very mobile, independent, but need that assistance with some things,
Mhm.
maybe dishes,
Mhm.
laundry, etc., they're still wanting to stay either in their home or they're downsized 55 and over, just maintenance free living, to contact your company and really get that assistance in just for those, especially if they don't have relatives nearby, which may be the case. They're still here and they want to stay here. All the family has moved on to other states, etc., and they don't have that support system to lean on. So they need really someone to help. But research, really, you need to be comfortable. I think they need to visit multiple 55 and over communities, and maybe they don't want 55 and over.
Mhm.
Maybe they still want a community where there's a school in the neighborhood where there's a lot of action, a lot of kids. They still want to see children and people out walking their dogs, etc. We can find ranches. They're a lot more few and far between, but we can find them if you have a little time on your side. We can find them. But yeah, if you're doing a assisted, really move in, needing some care, it's all going to depend on where you're comfortable with, and looking at the reviews and et cetera, and what kind of level care you're needing.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's great advice. Brendan, dovetailing off of that in your experience and in your experience with your dad,
Mhm.
any other advice you'd add on to that?
I mean, I just say start the conversations early, because I find a lot of our clients, my personal case, it unfortunately happened. It's when you're in crisis mode and you're having to navigate like medical issues and working through all that, other issues about long-term home and the state and the sizing and all that is just
It's daunting.
overwhelming, right? And it's really doesn't become a priority, but it has to be dealt with. So I think like starting the conversations early, talking through, what their wishes are, and again, we want to say, people, we want to age as gracefully as possible.
For
And,
sure.
just because somebody's been in a home forever and they think that's the only place, there are other places where they can be happy
Right.
and fulfilled and
Right.
social and all
Yeah.
that. So, yeah.
I'd probably add onto that too. Make sure you've got all the estate planning I's dotted and T's crossed as
100%.
well,
100%.
so that
Mhm.
power of attorneys and all those
Mhm.
things are just in place, so you don't get caught flat-footed when the
Right.
time comes. Yeah.
Have a trust in
Yeah.
place, have at least wills, but a trust is that next level up where
Yeah.
we're looking at doing that now, because I just went through it a couple of years ago with my dad passing. We put everything for my mom in a trust just so
Mhm.
it simplified for our well-being
Mhm.
when that time comes. So yeah, we are the sandwich generation for sure.
Yeah. Time to parent
We're
our
in the
parents
middle.
at
We're in the
times.
middle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, thanks so much for your time and expertise
Welcome.
today. You are fabulous.
Thank
Enjoyed
you.
having you here
Thank
too.
you.
If people need to reach out to you for
Mhm.
your services, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Just my phone. Call me or text me, and the number is 630-292-2696. You won't be routed through a whole team of people. You'll talk to me directly. So call me or text me anytime. I'm happy to talk, happy to help.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Brennan, thank you again too. I appreciate it. Jennifer, thank you again for taking the time with us today and for helping our efforts to find ways to assist seniors to age in place in their golden years. Brennan, we appreciate you as well, and Seniors Helping Seniors sponsor this program and being part of the Naperville area guide on this topic. We look forward to all of you joining us next time for our next guest. And until then, remember, it takes a village, so play your part in the village. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.